folks. So a lot of these videos are going to be a lot more practical and how-tos and things like that. But this video is really more about the why. Why do you want to design a classroom, keeping in mind designing from a mental illness, mental health perspective? So there's a few really big reasons why you would want to do that. The first one is that mental illness affects a huge number of individuals, and that number seems to just be growing. There are so many people that are dealing with mental illness. It's a number that's creeping up and up and up and up. The second reason is that mental illness is invisible. You often don't know if someone is dealing with a mental illness. People often don't behave the way you might think someone with a mental illness behaves. And in fact, some of your most successful students could be some of the most crippled with a mental illness. You just really never know. Additionally, mental illness strikes every single group. It doesn't discriminate. It affects all genders, all races, all sexualities. It affects everyone. So you're kind of encompassing everyone when you talk about it. The third thing is some of your students with mental illness might ask for accommodations because those are options for students. However, a lot of your students might not, even if they have a diagnosis. So some of your students might not know they have a diagnosis, and some of your students might know they have a diagnosis, but not know that they can get the accommodations for it. So they don't even bother to ask. The other thing is that there's still, while our world has gotten a lot better about mental illness, there still remains a lot of stigma about it. So a lot of students don't want to disclose it, or they don't get the help that they need because they don't want to be saddled with that diagnosis. So those are things to keep in mind about designing for mental illness. The other thing is that a lot of these techniques aren't just great for mental illness, but they're great for students but it's great for all students. Because even if students don't have a mental health diagnosis, they could be dealing with something big in their lives that is affecting their mental health. For example, right now, a lot of folks who maybe don't have mental illness, but are maybe struggling with anxiety or depression or grief because of this pandemic. So life happens, and these techniques a lot of them are more about just developing compassion and empathetic teaching practices for your students, which will help your students with mental illness, but will help your students even if everything is going great in their lives because you've built that in. And those are some of the big reasons why designing with a mental illness in mind can really help and enhance your classes for all of your students.